After a week's worth of hysterics, after maligning, mocking, and chastising President Obama's appeal to bring the Olympic Games to an American city, in our fourth story on the countdown, as Chicago is handed a stunning defeat, the right wing claims victory. Following an 11th-hour in-person pitch from President Obama in Copenhagen, the city of Chicago given a swift rejection from the International Olympic Committee, knocked out of the running to host the 2016 Olympics after the first round of voting. The power of two Obamas and an Oprah didn't give the Windy City an edge over the competition. After an impassioned plea from its president, all eyes were on Brazil.
Rio de Janeiro.
President Obama returning from Copenhagen this afternoon, congratulating Brazil on their historic victory. They will be the first South American city to host an Olympic Games, while adding he could not be prouder of his hometown.
I believe it's always a worthwhile endeavor to promote and boost the United States of America.
Those in disagreement, the conservative right, today perversely gleeful over America's defeat.
I mean, please, let me break this news to you. Oh, it's so sweet. Is it possible that this is the first head of state of any major country that has ever gone over and made the pitch in person and then failed?
Oh, man, the worst day of Obama's presidency, folks. The ego has landed.
The Drudge Report trumpeting the headline, "World Rejects Obama," showing a picture of Rio's Christ the Redeemer statue being struck by lightning. Meanwhile, the conservative group Americans for Prosperity actually applauded Chicago's defeat, demonstrating they are actually opposed to prosperity in Chicago.
If anyone cares, Chicago is out. The very first vote, they did not have any chance at even negotiating. They were out on the first vote. So
joining me now is MSNBC political analyst and national affairs columnist for Newsweek, Jonathan Alter. Good evening, Jonathan.
Hi, Lawrence.
Jonathan, I was so wrong about this one. I had your fellow Chicagoan Clarence Page on this program before the president went over there saying the fix is in, right? The Chicago gang, Richie Daley, they wouldn't let him get on the plane without the fix being in. What happened here?
No, the fix was never in. A couple of weeks ago when I was talking to folks about this, the White House really didn't want him to go because they knew that because the Olympics had never been in South America before, that there was a very decent chance that Rio was going to get these games. So there was this big debate. The Chicago people were pushing hard for him to go on the off chance that they could catch, win at the tape. And he finally decided that if he didn't go and they lost, he'd then get blamed for it, so he might as well go and give it the big effort.
And this is a job creation program. I mean, if you bring the Olympics to Chicago, you're going to push an awful lot of jobs in that direction. So, I mean, this seemed to me to be a perfectly reasonable use of presidential time, isn't it?
And it wasn't very much time. I mean, most of it was overnight. The complaints about this are kind of pathetic, really. Sure, it's embarrassing for him for a couple of days, but does it cause any lasting political damage? Can you imagine somebody at the next election going, an independent voter, I was going to be for President Obama, but then he wasted those 18 hours back in 2009 going across the ocean to Copenhagen, so I'm not for him. I mean, we're in such cloud cuckoo land here, Lawrence, in terms of what is of lasting political importance. And I don't even think it scored very many short-term points for the right wing, because they just looked churlish, seeming to be exultant about the fact that the United States isn't going to get the Olympics.
Well, Jonathan, I hold in my hands a recent Zogby poll indicating that 84% of Americans supported Chicago hosting the 2016 Olympic Games. How does the president go wrong doing what 84% of Americans want him to do?
It's actually more than the percentage of Chicagoans that wanted it, because there were a lot of Chicagoans who thought it wasn't such a great idea.
It can mess up your daily commute if the Olympics are in town.
Not just that, but the budget numbers were a little, dicey there. I don't think that either a governor going abroad to try to bring business to his or her state, or a president trying to bring a big business opportunity to the United States, that's part of what presidents are supposed to do, is represent the best interests of our country. If it doesn't consume a lot of time, and this didn't, why not try? And also the idea that he's supposed to succeed and the fix is supposed to be in all the time, or why bother? That just means you do less if you're not willing to try and risk failure. So, we all should be putting ourselves out on the line and not being afraid to fail.
And doesn't this demonstrate that for the Glenn Becks out there, that Barack Obama's just become this tripwire, that they can't help tripping over no matter what the situation is? They're out there today gleefully dancing on the idea that America has lost a big one.
Yeah, there was a good column by David Brooks this morning in the New York Times arguing that Glenn Beck and none of these guys really have any power. It's all just entertainment. None of them have actually moved any voters. They do things to entertain their base, get their base all revved up. But mostly it's much ado about very little.
Jonathan Alter of Newsweek and MSNBC, sorry about this loss for your hometown today, and thank you very much for your time tonight, Jonathan.
It's like the Cubbies.
Right.